Hi, everyone, and welcome to Discovery Days with the Oklahoma Hall of Fame and Gaylord Pickens Museum. We're so excited you guys are here and can't wait to get started. We want to take a quick moment to say thank you to our sponsors with the Chickasaw Nation and the Inasmuch Foundation for making free family programming in 2021 possible. All right, guys, we're going to jump right in. So here at the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, our mission is to tell Oklahoma's story through its people. Every day we work really hard to share the inspiring stories of Oklahomans with all generations because we believe that Oklahomans are changing the world. Today, our world changer from Oklahoma is that of Ms. Edith Kinney Gaylord. She was the first woman on the general news staff of the Associated Press Washington Bureau, and she became the first ladies media liaison. That just means that she helped all the communications and to make sure everything was organized and ready to go, and served as one of her correspondents for her press conference association. So over her lifetime, Ms. Gaylord supported many organizations and projects, often anonymously, meaning she didn't tell anyone that she was the one that was helping. Her interests range from education and health to the arts and environment. And in 1982, she established the Inasmuch Foundation, which supports organizations around Oklahoma to kind of continue her good work of philanthropy, which means using our time and resources to give back to our communities. All right, guys, well, we're going to read a really fun story about making sure that we help all of those around us when we can. The story is called The Spiffiest Giant in Town. I'm going to switch this over so you guys can see the story as we read along. All right, so we're going to read The Spiffiest Giant in Town. George was a giant, the scruffiest giant in town. He always wore the same pair of old brown sandals and the same old patched up gown. I wish I wasn't the scruffiest giant in town, he said sadly. But one day, George noticed a new shop. It was full of spiffy clothes. So he bought a spiffy shirt, a spiffy pair of pants, a spiffy belt, a spiffy striped tie, some spiffy socks with diamonds on the sides, and a pair of spiffy shiny shoes. Now I'm the spiffiest giant in town, he said proudly. George left his old clothes behind the shop. He was about to go home when he heard a sound. On the sidewalk stood a giraffe who was sniffing sadly. What's the matter? Asked George. It's my neck, said the giraffe. It's so very long and so very cold. I wish I had a long, warm scarf. Cheer up, said George, and he took off his striped tie. It didn't match my socks anyway, he said, as he wound it around and around the giraffe's neck. It made a wonderful scarf. Thank you, said the giraffe. Look how funny it is, all wrapped around his neck. As George strode toward home, he sang to himself, my tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe, but look me up and down, I'm the spiffiest giant in town. George came to a river on a boat. Stood a goat who was bleating loudly. What's the matter? Asked George. It's my sail, said the goat. It blew away in a storm. I wish I had a strong new sail for my boat. Cheer up, said George, and he took off his new white shirt. It kept coming untucked anyway, he said, as he tied it to the mast of the goat's boat and made a magnificent sail. Thank you, said the goat. George strode on, singing to himself, my tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe. My shirt, it's on a boat as a sail for a goat. But look me up and down, I'm the spiffiest giant in town. George came to a tiny ruined house. Beside the house stood a white mouse with lots of baby mice. They were all squeaking. What's the matter? Asked George. It's our house, squeaked the mother mouse. It burned down and now we have nowhere to live. I wish we had a nice new house. Cheer up, said George, and he took off one of his shiny shoes. It was giving me blisters anyway, he said, as the mouse and her babies scrambled inside. The shoe made a perfect home for them. Thank you, they squeaked. George had to hop along the road now, but he didn't mind. As he hopped, he sang to himself. My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe. My shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat. My shoe is a house for a little white mouse, but look me up and down, I'm the spiffiest giant in town. George came to a campsite. Beside a tent stood a fox who was crying. What's the matter? Asked George. It's my sleeping bag, said the fox. I dropped it in a puddle. I wish I had a warm, dry sleeping bag. Cheer up, said George as he took off one of his socks with diamonds on the sides. It was tickling my toes anyway, he said, as the fox snuggled into it. It made a very fine sleeping bag. Thank you, said the fox. George hopped on, singing to himself, my tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe, my shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat. My shoe is a house for a little white mouse, one of my socks is a bed for a fox. But look me up and down, I'm the spiffiest giant in town. George came to a big squishy bog. Beside the bog stood a dog who was howling. What's the matter? Asked George. It's this bog, said the dog. I need to get across, but I keep getting stuck in the mud. I wish there was a safe, dry path. Cheer up, said George as he took off his spiffy new belt. It was squeezing my tummy anyway, he said as he laid it down over the bog. It made an excellent path. Thank you, said the dog. The wind started to blow, but George didn't mind. He hopped on, singing to himself. My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe. My shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat. My shoe is a house for a little white mouse. One of my socks is a bed for a fox. My belt helped a dog who was crossing a bog. But what's going to happen? My pants are falling down. I'm the coldest giant in town. Suddenly, George felt sad and shivery and not at all spiffy. He stood on one foot and thought, I'll have to go back to the shop and buy some more clothes, he decided. He turned around and hopped all the way back to the shop. But when he got there, it was closed. Oh no, cried George. He sank down onto the sidewalk and a tear ran down his nose. He felt as sad as all the animals he had met on his way home. Then, out of the corner of his eye, he saw a bag with something familiar poking out of the top. George took a closer look. My gown, he yelled. My dear old gown and sandals. George put them on. They felt wonderfully comfortable. I'm the coziest giant in town, he cried, and he danced back home along the road. Outside his front door stood all the animals he had helped. They were carrying an enormous present. Come on, George, they said. Open it. George untied the ribbon. Inside was a beautiful gold paper crown and a card. Look inside the card, George, said the animals. George put the crown on his head and opened the card. Inside it said, you gave your scarf to a cold giraffe. Your shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat. Your shoe is a house for a little white mouse. One of your socks is a bed for a fox. Your belt helped a dog who was crossing a bog. So here's a very fine crown to go with the sandals and gown of the kindest giant in town. Well, what a fun story about a giant who gave everything he had to help those around him. All right, guys, so we're going to make a fun craft today that's all about lending a helping hand. So the first thing we need is a piece of paper, whether it's a big white piece of paper like this or a piece of colored paper. So we are going to color our paper however we want to. And I'm going to color mine in stripes, just like this. And I'm not going to add a lot of detail at first because I'm going to glue some things down on top of it. All right, so I'm going to do that one, do another blue one down here. So we're also going to need some other pieces of paper, whether they're colored or white ones like this, that's fine. Whatever you have works. Mine are colored, and I'm going to, here in a minute, I'm going to trace my hands on all five. I have 5 pieces of paper, and I'm going to trace my hands on those and then cut them out. All right, let's do another one up here. And remember, you can color this however you want to. Because remember, when we're making art, there is no right or wrong, right? It's just however we make it. Color this whole thing down here yellow. All right, I'm gonna add in, let's put some green up here. Get a little bigger. Okay, so after we get this colored, I'm going to trace my hands and then cut each one of them out. Add some more blue. Let's add some more yellow. Okay. Add more blue. And color the rest of this green. Okay, so now that I've got this colored, my next step is to trace my hands. So I've got 5, I'm gonna set this aside. I've got 5 pieces of paper here, and I'm gonna trace my hand on each one of those. I'm gonna use my crayons here, trace my hand just like this. And you might need a grown-up's help for this one, but that's okay. Just remember to ask your grown-up for some help. Okay. 1 down, 4 to go. All right. I'm going to press pretty hard on this one just so I can see it better when I go to cut it out. Okay. All right. 1 more. Okay, there we go. Now, I'm going to show you guys a trick, and you don't have to cut yours out this way, but I'm going to cut mine out. So I've got all of mine stacked up here. So I'm going to see if I can cut them out all at the same time. And you don't have to do it this way. You can cut them out one by one. The other thing you can do is you can cut them out. You can do your hands and a friend's hand, or a grown-up's hand or another family member's hand if you want. And then you'll have different sizes of hands too. All right. All right, so I've almost got these all cut out. Okay, so come around the bottom here, just like this. Okay, so let's see here. Let's see if that worked. I'm going to lay them all out, and I'm going to touch some of them up too. There we go. All right. It's okay if they have crayon on them. That's okay. We won't even see that when we glue them down. So I'm just going to touch some of these up a little bit. Okay, just make these cuts a little bit cleaner. Perfect. Okay, so now that I've got all of those cut out, I'm going to take my piece of paper. I'm going to get that back in my glue stick, and now I'm going to glue each one of these hands down. I'm going to figure out how I want them glued down first. Do that. That. And do that. And then I'm going to put my blue one on top. Okay, so to glue these down, I'm going to flip my hand over on the back side here. Now, since we're putting glue on crayon, remember it doesn't always stick super well, so I made sure to put a lot of glue on the back of my hand. And then I'm just going to press really, really hard like that. Okay. I'm going to do that on each one. And when I'm putting glue on it, I'm making sure I'm getting it on each finger. All the way to the end of each finger. And then I'm getting the palm of it really good too. Okay. Does anyone know why we're tracing our hands and gluing them down like that? So there's a phrase and it is lending a helping hand. And that means that you're lending a helping hand to someone and you're helping them with a project that they have. No matter what that project is, it's just something that you're helping them with. You're lending a helping hand. So, and we're giving someone a hand. There's lots of sayings like that. So we are tracing our hands and gluing those down to show that we lend helping hands. All right, so I'm just putting glue on the back of each one of my hands here. And then I'm going to glue, and my hands are bigger. My guess is bigger than yours. So that means that mine are probably going to overlap a little bit more than yours do. And that's okay. All right. Okay, one more. I'm going to put glue on the back of this last hand here. All right. Glue this down just like that. All right. And if you guys want, you can take your crayons and you can color on top of your hands or add more detail behind your hands on the white paper, however you guys want to do that. I'm going to stop sharing this so that way I can see all of you and I can show you guys all. I can show you guys this. Kind of disappears a little bit with my background, but that's okay. Well, I had so much fun with all of you. I can't wait to do it again. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you next time. Bye.